Hey homeschoolers, I'm Melissa Webb, former full-time classroom teacher and homeschool mom turned full-time business CEO. I am determined and dedicated to helping you in this journey that you're on. Yes, I want to give you sound, educational, practical tips and advice, at the same time making sure that you're enjoying the family journey. So if you are looking for a place to be encouraged and inspired, you have found the perfect podcast. Homeschooling is a work of heart is truly the perfect place to start. So welcome. Let's jump in. Hey there, homeschoolers. How are you, my friend? Let's see. The school year for me is quickly winding down, and I have to say, our students rocked their narratives. That was their last essay assignment, and they were asked to develop an entertaining, heroic fantasy with a dragon villain who awakened after this long slumber and then begins to terrorize a village. That's what they were given. Same prompt for all of our kiddos. But so many different twists and turns were developed. It was an amazing prompt. Feel free to use it. So some students decided to have their dragons come from the sea, and then they developed these intense underwater adventures. They were so good. Others used humor, which I'm a big fan of. And one girl in particular put her dragon in polka dotted pajamas, eating pancakes with strawberries and whipped cream, which delighted me. And then others decided to explain that their dragon was simply misunderstood and needed help, not harm. It was amazing. It is so thrilling to watch the minds of children today come up with these clever, creative storylines, and they wholeheartedly entertained us. My whole team loved them. They were so good. So now we are moving into our final bonus unit. This is going to be a poetry course, and we're going to learn all about silly limericks. It's going to be a fun way to wrap up the year. So I'm looking forward to that. You know me, I love writing. I love words. I think words are so intriguing. They're very interesting to me. There's a word for everything, and there's a story behind every word. And I find that fascinating, absolutely fascinating. And that was part of what inspired this week's recording, because I have been wanting to record a short talk on etymology. And why not? This just seems like a really good time to talk about words and their roots and their origins and their many parts. I'm glad you're here. Let's talk about etymology. Etymology, if it's not a word that you're super familiar with, I'm going to make it very easy for you. It's simply the study of word origins, where words come from and how they've changed over time. But it also includes Greek and Latin roots, prefixes, suffixes, and how those things can transform the meanings. So what's coming to mind is the word telephone. That is a word that comes from the Greek root tele, meaning far, and also phone, meaning sound. So you put that together, it's far sound. So this is great, right? It gives this understanding, oh, telephone is a far sound. I don't know if you're already taking time to do a word a week and study that word in depth, but it is my goal this week to convince you to embrace this idea if you are not. And I will say this, with summer coming, this could be a perfect time to practice with it. Start with something light and engaging. Create an etymology journal, which I'll get into more detail a little later on, but it's just a thought. I'm planting a seed, and I just want you to consider letting me water it and fertilize it a little bit with this episode, and then you decide how to apply it in your homeschooling world. Okay, so I want to first talk about why it even matters, and I have a lot of opinions on this. I wrote down my top 4 reasons why deep word study matters, etymology matters. You may have more, but I was like, okay, let me just narrow this down because I could honestly talk a great deal about it. But these are the 4 that I think mean the most. Number 1, you want to do this. You want to study words because it will deepen vocabulary understanding. So when students learn why a word means what it means, I believe it connects all of us to those words that we will be using. It's kind of like doing a novel unit. I love to do book studies and novel units, and I feel this way about authors. So before I start a book with a class, or when I did this with my kiddos at home, I would always teach the backstory of the author. Once kids know and understand a little bit about the person who wrote the book, what inspired that person to even write it, maybe a few fun facts, you get what I would call buy-in, and that increases interest. And I think that's true with etymology, because words are no longer just labels or strings of letters that have no meaning. No. Now they have more meaning. They have more purpose. I would even say they start to have a bit of personality. So that's my number 1 reason why I think this matters. Let's deepen the vocabulary understanding. The second reason why I think this matters is that studying words, and this is actually proven with science, when we study a word in depth, we will help our children become better spellers. Now, why and how? So let me give you an example. If you take the word script and you really delve into the etymology of it, so you're looking at it, you're looking at the 6 letters that make up the word script, you're talking about it, could be a spelling word, but then you also talk about the etymology of it. And you say, this is actually a word from Latin, and it means to write. Okay, now we can add that to other parts and create new words. So they're familiar with script. They know how to spell script. And now you give them a word like manuscript. They're like, oh, wait, manu, M-A-N-U, script, I know it. Instead of being overwhelmed by a long word that maybe doesn't have as much meaning for them. Other words like subscription or inscription. These make the spelling of words not as difficult if you have taken the time to practice script. And again, then they learn a word like manuscript, manu meaning hand, script meaning to write. They now understand, they've got that vocabulary, but they also now are better at spelling those words as well. The third thing is that when they are reading and they come across words that you have studied, they're going to recognize those word parts. Thus, it increases reading comprehension. That's important. It's going to give them the clues they need when they're reading and they come across an unfamiliar word. It's like working a puzzle. When children are less intimidated by big words because they can realize a big word is actually smaller words all put together. It's like putting that puzzle together. And so their comprehension, when they run across that word, it increases tenfold. This is good, important stuff. And as parent teachers, I just want to make sure you are adding this into your daily or weekly lessons. Now, the last thing is that I think a really important reason for doing this is that it also improves writing skills. And that makes sense because what you're doing here is you are building a richer vocabulary. And children who have a richer vocabulary tend to be more precise in their writing, more varied, and what they write tends to be more interesting. It sounds more academic. And we all want to help our children know when to have an academic tone. Sometimes we're very casual. This podcast is very casual. I'm just talking to you as if we just sat down and are having coffee together, and it's just a casual conversation. And there's a time and place for that in writing, but there's also a time and place to be more formal. And having a great vocabulary will lend itself to that. Now, I bet there are even more reasons. Did you think of one that I didn't? Share with me, by all means. What are more reasons why etymology is an excellent thing to focus on when you're creating lessons? I know there are even more. Okay, but how do we do it? There are a lot of ways that you can incorporate etymology into your daily lessons or your weekly lessons. So as a teacher and a homeschool mom, we would do word of the week. I just liked it. It didn't feel daunting or overwhelming. And yes, there are workbooks titled just that, word of the week. There are also apps these days that will just remind you every morning, here's your word of the day or word of the week. I tried doing a word of the day. For me, it didn't work. It felt overwhelming, and I didn't feel like we solidified the meaning in just one day. So I liked word of the week. And as I mentioned earlier, I also recommend starting a journal called the Etymology Journal. Each child could have one, or you could just have one as a family. But what you're going to do is you're going to write down, or the child's going to write down the word of the week on a page. And you're going to put down what you learned about it, maybe the Latin or Greek origins of it. Maybe find a clever way to use it in a sentence, tell a story with it, even draw a picture. If you have kids who love to doodle and draw, say, I want you to draw what this word means. Use it verbally throughout the week. Get clever, get silly, have fun as a family with this, but revisit it every day and just continue to practice, because practicing the word regularly matters. And again, I'm just a big believer in quality over quantity. I would be much more impressed if my child at the end of the year could recall 20 to 30 great words and really have a strong understanding than anybody who could say, oh my goodness, we have 185 new words in our journal. Be like, wow, that's a lot. But what are they remembering? And you know your child best. Maybe they can handle that many. We couldn't. Maybe that says more about me. I actually have a friend who has a wonderful memory, especially when it comes to word knowledge. And she impresses me greatly. She promises me that her husband's even better at that. I can't imagine it, but I don't have that gift. I'll hear a word and I'm more like an emu, right? You know about emus. They forget everything. Animal handlers who work with them say it's much like meeting a new person every day to an emu. They just don't have that kind of memory. And I think that's where I am. I'm like, oh, is that what that word means? And my husband will be like, honey, you already knew that. It's okay. I feel like I need my brain space for a lot of other things. And I know I can look up a word. So I'm not worried about it. Okay, let's work it into your lessons. You've got the journal idea, but you also could do a morning root word exercise. We did this as well. There are a lot of great books out there, but my favorite is called Word Roots. It's published by the Critical Thinking Company, and it's very simple to use. It's a fabulous workbook. You can find it on Rainbow Resource or wherever you buy your curriculum. I will link to the Rainbow Resource space so that you could find the level 1 book, see what I'm talking about, and you could just kind of move your way up over time. I will say any parents that I have shared this resource with, thank me. It is a wonderful tool. For example, you'll open up the workbook and it will say, and it has a list, almost like a spelling list. It's not just one word, it's a list, but you practice them all week. And they have a lot of connections because the root, say the root this week is bio, meaning life, then you're going to have words around that like biology, biography, antibiotic, and they're going to see bio in all of those. It's kind of a fun thing to do, right? If you know bio is life and logy has to do with the study of, biology is the study of life. If you've got biography, bio is life, and graphy is written or writing, then we've got biography is the writing of someone's life. Or antibiotic, anti meaning against, bio life. That would actually be a great conversation to have with your child, because your kiddos would be like, wait, an antibiotic? You've given me antibiotics. Is it against my life? No, it's actually not against your life. What it's against are those tiny little germs, the bacteria, the microbes that make us sick. And you can explain how when a doctor gives us antibiotics, they are giving us medicine that's going to go against the life of the bad germs that are growing. It's going to kill those off. Great conversations come from this. And then all of a sudden, there's just a deeper understanding. So that would be the second suggestion. So you've got a journal idea. Do a morning root word exercise. And maybe it's just once a week. Maybe you just do it on Wednesday mornings. Great. It's fine. I just had this thought. I'm imagining you create a word detective game as a family of sorts. And everybody's looking for the mystery word of the week. They could find it maybe in the science book, the history book. It could come from a fictional book that they are reading or that you're reading together. And every week, your kids could jot down like, I want this to be next week's mystery word of the week. You get to pick it. That next week, that becomes the mystery word of the week. And again, you could add that into that journal. But I just think it'd be great. I could just picture you're reading your history book and you pause at the word democracy and you say, let's look at that word, democracy. Demos is people and kratos is to rule. So democracy comes from people ruling. The people are the rulers, and then talk about how that is different from having a king or a queen who would rule. Democracy is letting the people rule the country. Again, it allows for much better understanding, deeper conversations, and increased comprehension. Again, you can tie that into other things. Like then you hear a word like pandemic, and you look at demic, which also comes from demos, people, and pan means all. So something that all the people get, pandemic, right? Having come out of one, like this is a great opportunity to even talk about the difference between that versus epidemic. Epi meaning more regional or an area, not all, like pan. So much you could do with it. I am a word geek if you haven't recognized it yet. All right. And the last word geeky thing I do want to offer you, because I love the stories behind words. I think that's really fun. So you could just share weekly something about like the origin story of a word. So for example, there's the word salary, which we know today as money we earn, money we get to buy the things we need. But did you know that it's a Latin word? It comes from salarium, and that was actually money given to soldiers to buy salt, of all things. I think that's interesting. How about the word cookie? It actually has Dutch origins. And I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this correctly. It's in Dutch, koekja, and it means little cake. So there's a story behind it. It says, in the 1600s, Dutch bakers would bake small test cakes to check the temperature of their ovens. These little cakes became known as koekjes, which turned into cookies when they arrived in English-speaking countries. I love stuff like that. Okay, how about the word astronaut? So astron is Greek. It means star. And naut, N-A-U-T-E, means sailor. So an astronaut is a star sailor, someone who sails through the stars. Oh my goodness, isn't that just a beautiful way to describe a person who travels in space? There's so many fascinating things when you consider the etymology of the words we take for granted. Okay, I've got one more for you. How about the word apple? It was pronounced appel in Old English, and in ancient times, it was not used to mean a red apple or a yellow or a green apple from a tree. It was more general than that. It was actually just a word that meant fruit. So if you had a peach, you could say, appel, right? I want an appel, and it could have meant a peach or a pear. Supposedly, even nuts. It was things that grew from trees. I think that's fascinating. So fascinating. All right. I hope I've inspired you. I know I went a little long this time, but some good stuff. A few resources that I have you gotten the book called Vocabulary from Classical Roots. It's good. It's more structured curriculum. I probably wouldn't start it until upper elementary, for sure in middle school. So if you're collecting things for the fall semester, get Vocabulary from Classical Roots. There's also English from the Roots Up, which is really good if you are homeschooling kids at multiple grades, levels, and ages. A lot of people like English from the Roots Up. And for the adults, fun for the adults, it's not that you can't read this with your kids, but there are a few things in there that you just might not want to check for kid appropriateness. But there is a book by a gentleman by the name of Mark Forsyth, something like that. I'll link to it. It's called the Etymologicon. I don't know how to pronounce it, but I'm going to link to it. But what is fun about it, and I did put it on my Kindle for $5, is it's a whole book of word stories, but not for kids, more fun for adults. There's humor, there's cleverness, there's intrigue, just kind of woven throughout these many stories. I think you would enjoy it. So if you love words and you're a word geek like I am, again, check that one out. The Etymologicon by Mark Forsyth. I'll link. And then there's 3 websites I want to make sure you know about. One that's really fun. It's like an etymology dictionary, and it's called etymonline.com. I will link to it. And it's fun because you go to the website and you put in a word, and it will tell you its origin. It will give you background on the word itself. It's a fun, free resource. There's also membean.com. It's one word, membean, MEMBEAN. Have you heard of this one? It's like $6 a month if you get the year subscription. But teachers love it. I've heard great things about it. I've not used it, but they offer root-based learning for vocabulary expansion. And being that it's online, it's updated, people love it. So you may want to check that out. And then if you haven't already bookmarked Merriam-Webster's Kid Dictionary to your child's most used computer for quick reference and inspiration, you should, because they actually do a word of the week. So you don't even have to go get a workbook. You could just be like, hey, what's the Merriam-Webster's word of the week? And they give kid-friendly word definitions. They do the roots. It's a great site. So those would be my 3 top suggestions for you. Check the show notes, and I will have all the links there. It's going to be a lot of links this week. Most importantly, I hope you embrace words. I hope you're inspired. I hope you get curious, because your children will follow, and enthusiasm is contagious. If you're feeling a little enthusiastic about this idea, there's proof. My excitement is rubbing off on you. And I just want to remind you, you do not have to make it a separate subject. You can, but you can just weave it into what you're already doing. It doesn't have to be super structured. Are you feeling encouraged to help your kiddos grow confident in the handling of word knowledge and advanced text, and even expanding their expression? And not just verbally, this, like I said, is going to flow into their written expression. It's so great. I love what Charlotte Mason has said. This is a great quote. The mind feeds on ideas. So word origins are rich ideas, my friends. We want to expose our kids to the great things in life. And a lot of those great things center around beautiful language and wonderful words. So learn on, study on, and by all means, write on. Well, thanks so much for tuning in and listening this week. Hey, if this was something that you found valuable, don't forget you want to subscribe or follow so that every time a new episode is dropped, you'll be the first to know. And hey, before you go, If you are looking to get some of this academic writing under your belt and outsourced so that it's one less thing, freeing you up to enjoy more time with your family, hey, you're going to want to head over to writeonweb.com to see what kinds of resources and materials I have available for you. I will look forward to seeing you there, and I will look forward to seeing you here in our next episode. Right on.